Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. So this is going to be somewhat of a follow-up to yesterday's video. Yesterday was Saddam Hussein, the second episode in our villain series. And today's video, we're going to be kind of like zooming in on a specific area that I just glossed over yesterday. And that's the first Kuwait War and how it came to be.
The first Gulf War, yeah.
Yeah, the Gulf War. I apologize. And so if you're interested in more of the whole Saddam story, you can check out yesterday's video. Otherwise, today we're talking about the Gulf War.
Okay, so I'm going to put a map. We're going to understand what precipitated this conflict.
Okay.
So I'm going to put a map up on the screen, and this is the Rila Reservoir, which you can see on the northern part, is mostly in Iraq, and then a bit of it is in Kuwait. Okay. And so there's going to be some disputes here. Now, this was discovered in 1953, this oil deposit, and Iraq refused to make a deal with Kuwait to share production costs and revenue. This is what normally happens. You make a deal with the other country to share production costs and revenue, and then there's a formula that sets the percentage of ownership, depending on how much money you put in, where the oil's at, which side it's on mostly, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know the formula, but this is how it's normally done.
Okay.
Everybody does it this way because there's all types of oil deposits that are half and half in countries or a quarter. So both countries just mine the oil field.
Okay.
What I mean is they drilled oil out of the oil field. They didn't mine it. It's going to be mined in a bit. So that's a little confusing. So the Iran-Iraq war began in 1980. And of the 615 oil wells in Iraq, 225 were in the Rila Reservoir.
Okay.
So it's about a third of their oil, roughly, a little over. So during the war, Iraq mined their oil wells at Ramallah on the north side of it to prevent them from falling into Iranian hands. During the war, Kuwait stepped up its total oil production, capturing some of Iraq's customers, because they can't mine it right now, and pumping millions of barrels from the Ramallah field. Kuwait also violated OPEC's numbers and sold so much oil that the price of oil worldwide dropped dramatically.
Interesting.
In violation of OPEC, yeah. So when the war ended in 1988, Iraq resumed pumping their oil.
Okay.
I'm assuming they got rid of all the mines and stuff like that. And so Saddam claimed that Kuwait owed $2.4 billion for the oil they had taken from the field. He also claimed at an emergency meeting of the Arab League that Kuwait's excessive sale of oil had cost Iraq $14 billion a year from their remaining wells. Quote, "We cannot tolerate this type of economic warfare."
Okay.
So the economic warfare that Kuwait is doing, this small little country, is so much economic warfare that it could lead to the collapse of Iraq's economy.
Okay.
What do you do if somebody's doing trickery, economic warfare against you, and your economy is going to collapse?
You have to do something to stop it. I mean, you have to.
You do what's best for your people.
Your life.
I'll tell you that. You want to poke the bear, you poke the bull, you get the horns. That's what I say.
So if this was reversed and Kuwait or Iraq was only using their 225 wells, and Kuwait just stopped producing, they're still getting a percentage of what Iraq is pumping? Like based on that formula?
No, but they didn't come to an agreement.
Oh, that's right.
That's how it normally works.
That's right. Okay, I
apologize. But they came to no agreement. Then they both started mining the wells. Now Saddam's like, hey, it should go a certain way. And Kuwait's like, you didn't want to make an agreement with us. There's no formal anything. How can you say we owe you? We're doing this in our own country.
So even though it was putting Iraq at risk, they really didn't have like a legal...
They did not have a legal.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. And so Kuwait's overall production in 1989 was an average of 1.8 million barrels a day, exceeded its OPEC quota by 700,000 barrels.
Wow.
So 700...
Almost tripled there.
So they were allowed to do 1.1 million barrels, and they were doing 1.8 million. This was in 89 after the Iran-Iraq war.
Okay.
So I'm guessing because they're giving this year, they hadn't charted it during the Iran-Iraq war because this year they were doing terrible as they were being accused of it. So they hadn't even stopped doing it yet. Between January and June 1990, barrels of oil fell from $20 to $14. Wow. It's a 30% drop in 1990. So the Kuwait conflict's precipitating. His grievance was that you dropped the oil price way back when. They're still dropping it. They're still doing this. This is violation of OPEC. So that's where the legal thing comes in.
Okay.
That you're terrible. Okay, so when we had first started thinking about this, you and I, we want to talk about non-vertical or slant drilling, which is drilling underneath into Iraq section. So Slant Drilling has denied that it happened.
Okay.
Though, when they invaded Kuwait, they obviously captured those oil fields in the southern part of the Ramallah field, which is named something else in Kuwait. And they captured 6 American workers for Santa Fe International Corporations were captured there. And that is a company that focuses in slant drilling.
Oh.
It just happened to be that 6 of them from a company that also focuses on that.
But if it's one big reservoir, what advantage do you have doing the slant drilling?
I don't know. I'm guessing you can only get the oil from so many places around here. Okay. And if you can go that way, and it allows you to line, like, what if you lined up one at the border here, spaced intermittently, but you lined up another on top of it at the border, but that was aimed that way. So you can increase your line along the border by 1 all the way down.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure exactly. Okay. But there's got to be a benefit to it. Okay. I don't even know if they were doing that. That's just an accusation, and that's it. So one of the problems was that Iraq was in debt.
Okay.
And this was the problem. So in 1997, this is right before the 1980 Iran-Iraq war started, Iraq was a net creditor. Almost all of their debt was incurred during the Iran-Iraq war. At the end of the war, they were $80 billion in debt.
Okay.
It's funny because we just give away $80 billion like it's nothing. Not to American cities, definitely not there. That'd be a waste. So Saddam asked Kuwait to forgive the $10 billion loaned during the war. So 10 of that $80 billion was from Kuwait. And remember, he's saying they lost $14 billion a year. So he wants the $10 billion to be forgiven. He wants $2.4 billion in reparations for the oil that they took from the thing, and that the Gulf states give Iraq financial aid amounting to $30 billion. Saddam Hussein based these demands on the claim that Iraq's war with Iran and sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of lives protected the Gulf states from revolutionary Iran.
Okay.
There's a point there. You can ask,
Sure.
So basically, there was a meeting.
Okay.
It was between Ambassador Gillespie and Saddam Hussein, and it was right before the invasion.
And that ambassador is for which country?
United States.
Okay.
And so nobody ever really knew what happened. Then there came this guy named Julian Assange.
Oh, interesting.
WikiLeaks.
Okay.
So this came from WikiLeaks. I've got an article linked below that gives you the exact same information I'm going to tell you. It's pretty interesting. And so the thing being leaked is a cable. And its official title is, quote, Saddam's message of friendship to President Bush. That's the name of the cable that's in the link in the description. It details the meeting between U.S. Ambassador April Gillespie and Saddam Hussein on July 25th, 1990, just a week before the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. Gillespie assured Saddam of Bush's friendship and expressed its support for the negotiations being set up by Hosni Mubarak for the weekend of July 28th to 30th. She also explicitly said that the United States took no position on the border dispute between Iraq and Kuwait, though the summary also mentions that she made clear that the U.S. wanted the move solved peacefully. Hussein assured that no action would be taken against Kuwait if the negotiations showed some progress, which seemed to suit the U.S. at the time. So this memo's from July 25th. The negotiations are going to be July 28th to 30th. He's going to invade on the 2nd of August.
I'm guessing nothing happened good at the negotiation.
Negotiations failed.
Okay.
So negotiations failed. Now this Gillespie said that the U.S. wanted the move solved peacefully, right? But they said that they took no position on the border dispute between Iraq and Kuwait. The day that happened, July 25th, they threw parties in Baghdad because the U.S. wasn't going to involve themselves with Kuwait, and they had to do something either through negotiation. Okay, it's not going to go good for them. I'll just let you know. So, United States Security Council Resolution 678. I honestly started reading these. People talk about these. You could just pull it up and read it right from the UN site. Fascinating stuff. So, the UN Security Council Resolution 678, 42 countries, 1 million troops, 697,000 U.S. troops. At the urging of the U.S., Israel was excluded for fear of defection by the Arab members. So I'm talking about. I'm describing the alliance. This is the coalition to get Saddam.
Okay, so he's invaded at this point?
Yeah. Oh, he invades. Yeah.
Okay, I thought we were going to...
No.
Slow play this
August
more.
2nd. No, he invaded.
Okay.
And then we just don't care about that stuff. So now it comes to the response.
Gotcha. Okay.
Resolution 678, 42 countries, 1 million troops. 697 of those 1 million are American troops. So 70% are American troops. At the urging of the United States, Israel was excluded for fear of defection by the Arab members. Okay. So no Israeli soldiers are going to go. But if you get Israel, they're thinking, we're going to lose Saudi Arabia. We're going to lose, and just go down the list. Okay? That was Resolution 678. And it demands that Iraq comply fully with Resolution 660. Okay. Which is from the 1990. Okay? That's what they require for the coalition to stop fighting. 678 says you comply with 660 from last year. Resolution 660 condemns the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, demands that Iraq withdraw immediately and unconditionally all of its forces to the positions in which they were located on 1st August 1990, the day before they invaded, calls upon Iraq and Kuwait to begin immediately intensive negotiations for the resolution of their differences, and supports all efforts in this regard, especially those of the League of Arab States, decides to meet again as necessary to consider further steps to ensure compliance with the resolution. Now, this is important because we're going to get to another aspect of this that's...
Okay.
Saddam's pretty much assured that nothing's going to happen if he does it. He does it. Now, there's this enormous coalition. So he's got 1 million soldiers. It's the same amount of soldiers.
Right.
Basically. He's got a lot of veterans over there. America's got a lot of technology. So at one point, I didn't put the date on here. I'll flash it on the screen, honestly. But at one point, Saddam Hussein decides to comply with Resolution 660, which Resolution 678 demanded he complied with it. So they begin a retreat from Kuwait, and they end up on Highway 80.
Oh, good.
It's going to be renamed the Highway of Death, right? They attack the front of the convoy. They're all complying with Resolution 660.
Who's they? Who attacked them?
The U.S.
Oh.
It's the whole coalition, but it's the U.S.
Gotcha.
So bomb the front of the convoy, bomb the back of the convoy. They spend 10 hours bombing this convoy. 3,000 Iraqi military vehicles, all complying with Resolution 678, which said comply with 660, and they're doing 660. They're returning to their August 1st positions. They're going home. They're bombed for 10 hours. So guess how many casualties they had? This is just the United States report. Guess how many casualties the Iraqis had? 3,000 vehicles, 10 hours of bombing.
So we're admitting this number?
Yeah, this is what we admit. Go.
10,000.
No, 200 to 300.
Who was driving all the vehicles?
No, this is serious.
They just ran out in the desert?
10 hours of bombing, 200 to 300 casualties. Trust the United States, your government would not lie to you.
Right.
So basically, I'm not telling the full story of the first Persian Gulf War. And if you're a veteran and you're looking like this, like, tell the whole story. No, I'm not telling the whole story.
Yeah.
I'm telling a little bit of intriguing stuff about how it looks like at the beginning of the war. It's not what it thought. It's not WMDs. WMDs is trash. We already know this. But Kuwait was trash too.
Right.
He was the good. Saddam Hussein was doing the right thing going in there.
Didn't we invade Iraq during part of this war? Like, I mean, it wasn't like we went into Kuwait to liberate them. We pushed into Iraq. How does that get us to 660? The 660 resolution. You know what I'm saying?
That's a really good point.
Like, none of it makes any sense.
So after a certain point, every one of Saddam's troops was in compliance with 660.
Okay.
And we continued to push them until they surrendered.
Into Iraq.
Into Iraq. Okay, that's amazing. That's a good point, honestly. Because once they reached the August 1st locations.
Right. By our own words.
By our own words. Boy, that makes the Highway of Death just look like one incident in a variety of war crimes or, whatever.
We just wanted some war.
It's the money, baby. It's so good.
H.W. Bush, yeah.
I just bought all types of military contracting stocks. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't. I wouldn't. It's a smart move, but I have a moral mindset of someone. I just thought these two stories were interesting, though.
Yeah. I never heard any of this. You didn't hear about the build-up. It was just evil Saddam invading poor little Kuwait.
Yeah. Oh, now I think back when I was a kid, they literally taught me that.
Right.
And they said, man, look at this. It's like Kamala Harris would say, there's a big country and there's a little country. When she's talking to the black folk. And
sure.
It's so terrible.
So, do you remember stories of Saddam setting fire to all the the oil pumps in Kuwait?
It was in Iraq, right, that he set fire to them.
I thought on the way out he was destroying all the stuff so Kuwait couldn't pump oil. And it makes sense if he really did that, because that was the main grievance.
Oh, that's interesting.
He was stopping their ability to pump oil.
I'm going to put facts on the screen because I failed. I failed to research that. And I'm going to put facts, how many in Kuwait and if any in Iraq were burned. Because I remember in the second Gulf War, they said they dropped flyers from the air and they said it's a war crime if you burn one well. We will hunt you down. We will hang you. It's a war crime. Don't stop the oil. We're here for your oil.
Yeah.
You know? That's a good point, though.
And then, of course, my next thought immediately is, I wonder if he even did that, or if we did that to make him look bad.
I think we're too greedy to do that.
Okay. It was just a thought that popped in my head.
But that's interesting. Just burn all the ones on the Kuwait side and then you can reestablish. Yeah, wild. Interesting. Okay, I look forward to researching that and putting that on the screen, honestly. I appreciate you. That's good.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
I contribute here and there.
Okay, every once in a while. But yesterday's video was great about Saddam.
Okay, cool.
So they just haven't seen the weeks where you haven't researched one. They're fresh on one and they're like, oh yeah, Victor's on.
He's on the show too?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Very interesting. We've talked about this a little bit going into this, but yeah, definitely learned some things. And man, we're the worst. Every time we do one of these historical ones, the U.S. is just terrible. How brainwashed were we growing up that we're the best country and such a gift to the world? Man,
yak, bomb Iraq.
Right. All right. Well, hopefully this was eye-opening and you learned something. And hopefully we'll catch you next time.